By looking at the brain tissue, they found that microplastics were present in, wait for it, 100% of the individual's brain study. Everyone had microplastics in their brain. We all have 60,000 miles worth of blood vessels packed inside our bodies. And when we eat something like plastic, it will actually deliver the plastic right through these channels, right to our organs. Microplastics in the brain can also cause, this is a kind of cellular, can damage your DNA. DNA in the brain damage, not a good thing. Is there something we could eat along with the food that could actually help prevent the microplastics from getting into our blood vessels? The answer is yes. And you know what that something is? It's something you should be eating anyway. It is. Okay, we've known for many, many years that microplastics show up in our food and our water supply. These are tiny little particles of plastic, less than 5 millimeters in size, smaller than a grain of rice, that basically degrade from the plastic that we wrap everything in. All right. And these microplastics are now in our ocean. They're coming from food packaging, bottles that get thrown out, bottles that contain our beverages, cling wrap. You know, that stuff that you put over your food, right, before you stick it in the fridge or to keep it protected from the air. They come from tea bags. They come from everywhere. Even tires that we actually are driving on the road is one of the biggest source of microplastics. It gets in the air and then we breathe it in. Well, microplastics are in our food supply. When we eat plastic, the plastic particles, the microplastics, enter our bloodstream. Now, you know that I study blood vessels, and I've said this many times. We all have 60,000 miles worth of blood vessels packed inside our bodies. These are the highways and byways that take the oxygen that we breathe and the nutrients that we eat to every single cell and every single organ in our body. And when we eat something like plastic, it will actually deliver the plastic right through these channels, right to our organs. All right. Until recently, we didn't realize that they could accumulate in our body, but now we do know they will accumulate for sure. Researchers have found microplastics inside the human brain. All right. This is the first study that was done on this topic by the University of New Mexico School of Medicine. They looked at brain tissue from people who died, okay, and had autopsies, and these are people aged 51 to 84, so they had pretty much half of their life or their entire lifespan to encounter plastics, and they're coming from a generation, all right, where plastics were everywhere, right? And everything you ate, everything you handled, basically was plastic. And by looking at the brain tissue of these people using a special technique called pyrolysis gas chromatography, mass spectrometry, don't worry about the name, that tongue twister. What I'm telling you is a very specific technique that they use. They analyzed 69 samples from these people from multiple brain regions, all right? So basically, think about the human brain. It's like a football, all right? It has frontal lobes in the front, temporal lobes in the side, the cerebellum, which sits underneath the brain, and then the brainstem, which is the root of the brain. And they just sampled different parts of it, 68 different samples. And here's what they found. They found in these older people that microplastics were present in, wait for it, 100% of the individual's brain studied. Everyone had microplastics in their brain. And in 26 out of 69 of the brain samples, so 37% of the samples, the plastic was found in different regions all throughout the brain. In other words, it wasn't just present in one part of the brain, it was scattered everywhere. Again, remember, blood vessels, highways and byways, delivering these little plastic particles, shooting them across every portion of your brain where they actually get embedded. So, what kind of plastic was actually found? Well, the kinds that you might have heard about. They found polyvinyl chloride, PVC. Ever hear of a PVC pipe, right? Your drain in your plumbing? Well, they found PVC plastic, which is found in cling wrap, for example, you know, the plastic stuff that you put over a dish of food, that contains PVC. By the way, you know what else contains PVC you might be surprised by? I was surprised when I learned this, that in a restaurant, you know those plastic tablecloths, right? Sometimes those tablecloths are coated with PVCs. All right, so they found that in the brain, scattered throughout the brain. They also found something called polyethylene. Now, what's polyethylene found in? I didn't know this until I had looked it up. Plastic wrap, again, cling wrap. Plastic bottles. Think about the water bottle or soda, which you shouldn't be drinking for health reasons. All right, cereal box liners, right? Think about it. Open a box of cereal. What is all that stuff found in? In a bag of plastic. Juice containers, plastic juice containers, even milk cartons, right? You ever pour out milk or finish the milk in a carton and look inside it or open it up when you were a kid? What's inside there? Plastic liner, right? That's what polyethylene is found in, and it was found scattered throughout the brain. One more plastic they found, polyethylene tetraphthalate, PET. Where do you find that plastic? Water bottles, ketchup bottles, right? Think about that. Salad dressing bottles. Think about it. Go to the grocery store, you get a bottle of salad dressing. What's it in? Plastic, PET. It's even found in cooking oil. You know why it's found in cooking oil? Because I bet when you buy your cooking oil, whether you do it now or in the past, I bet you bought a bottle of oil that's found in a plastic container. Guess what oil does? It leaches the plastic and it just dissolves right into that oil. Then you're going to cook with it, then you're going to eat it. So we encounter these containers made out of plastic that are shedding plastic into our bodies, and then now we're knowing it's getting into the brain. We encounter these plastic sources every single day. Why are these plastics that accumulate in the brain concerning? We don't have the full answer yet. So I want to tell you, this is an area of active research, right? But we know enough to be cautious about it. And I'll tell you why. Plastic particles may trigger neuroinflammation. Neuroinflammation simply means that you've got inflammation around nerves. And when neuroinflammation is in your brain, that's not a good thing because your brain is packed with neurons. And when they're inflamed, your brain's not going to work well. All right. And when your brain doesn't work well, what does that translate into? Cognitive problems, impairment. And think about it. As we are all aging and we want to be overall healthy when we're aging, one of the biggest desires is for us to be cognitively sharp, good brain function, and neuroinflammation will compromise that. Microplastics in the brain can also cause oxidative stress. This is a kind of cellular stress that can damage your DNA. DNA and brain damage, not a good thing, all right? And we think that this microplastics in the brain can cause, over the long term, neurological dysfunction. Now think about all those neurological conditions of aging. Parkinson's, dementia of various sorts, memory issues, all those kinds of things that on top of the neuropsychiatric issues that we see as people are getting older, all right, what is the contribution of microplastics that have accumulated throughout the brains? Listen, when plastics first came out in the 20th century, mid-1900s, it was a miracle that we could make plastics that were so solid, so colorful, so convenient, so strong, right? And nobody thought that they would actually shed into the food. But now, years later, we're getting smart about it. So I don't criticize an amazing technological feat that was going on, 70 years ago. But now we know better, all right? And we believe, and some researchers believe, that the kind of chronic brain inflammation that microplastics could be contributing to could even be linked to diseases like Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease. I don't think I need to say any more. Plastic shouldn't be in our brain. When plastic's in the brain, there's a chance it could cause inflammation, neuroinflammation, and we know all these dementias, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, vascular dementias, all right, they are all associated with brain inflammation. So again, we don't know the full answer. More research is needed and is underway, but having plastic building up inside your body, anywhere, but especially your brain, nobody wants this, all right? So what can you do? What's the practical way to lower your risk of exposure, okay? Can't avoid it altogether, but how do you lower your risk, all right? Number one, try to avoid ultra-processed foods because they are often found packaged in plastic bags or wrappers. When they come in a can, that can is coated with a lining of plastic to prevent the metal from contacting the material inside and giving a metallic taste. Plastic. That stuff just dissolves off or flakes off into the food that you're eating. The other thing is that we find microplastics even in fruits and vegetables, okay? So what do you do about that? Well, what I do and what I recommend that you do is to wash your produce, right? So you go to the grocery store, you buy all the healthy food in the produce section, plant-based foods, you should definitely do that. What you do before you're going to prepare it and eat it is wash it under cold running water, okay, for at least 60 seconds. So what I do in my house, I get one of those big metal mixing bowls, right? They're deep, they're big, wide, and you can put your fruits and vegetables in there, all right? And then just fill them up and let the water run, all right? So what you'll find is so don't overload it. Make sure that the water can get in there and wash things out. You'll be amazed at the dirt that comes off your food. This is like dirt that's been maybe from the farm, certainly in the container the box they were in, maybe on a train or a plane or a truck or wherever they go, and then in the back of the grocery store, and then loaded onto the shelf where you bought it. And even farmer's market, you've got schmutz that you actually want to wash it off. 60 seconds of cold running water will actually take care of most of the stuff. And according to USDA guidelines, that will actually make the food, wash the bacteria off of most of the food as well, okay? Most foods will have had some contact with plastic somewhere along the point from where they were in the field to your plate. So this is your opportunity to clean it off. And by the way, avoid storing or even buying your food in plastic, right? So skip the plastic bags that are in the produce section. Instead, buy a reusable cloth bag that you can bring back. It's also more sustainable, better for the environment, rather than keeping on buying plastic and throwing the plastic away, right? That's going to wind up somewhere that we don't want it to wind up. And some of it's going to wind up in your body. Get a cloth bag, reuse it. It's better for the planet and going to be better for your body. Another thing to avoid is ditch those plastic food storage containers. I used to have them all over the house. I grew up with them. You know, my mom would actually say, oh my gosh, this is so convenient for us to store. Inexpensive, lightweight, strong, colorful, stacked easily. You know what? That was then, this is now. We now know that plastic storage food containers will shed the plastic right into the food. Now the lid is actually okay. So what I say is get a glass bowl, Pyrex bowl, or metal, and then a plastic top is fine, all right, as long as it's not like contacting the food, all right? So those are things that you should actually think about. What about foods that you bring home that are thin skin, like apples or cucumbers, for example? You know what? If you have a soft brush, all right, not a plastic brush, but like with bristles, all right, or made with bamboo, like they have these bamboo scrapers. Rinse them, brush them off, and then dry them with a clean, real cloth towel. Not one of those plastic microfiber towels, real cotton towel. All right, so these are things that we didn't really used to think about much, but in the old days, like parents when they were kids and grandparents, they always dried things with a towel, all right? And they probably washed their food as well, and they didn't have the plastic to store them in, all right? So listen, it's frankly impossible to avoid all microplastics because we even breathe them in the air. Remember I told you tires turns out to be, from the road, spinning around, just flaking off plastic everywhere, turns out to be one of the biggest sources of microplastics, and we just inhale it. But every step you can take knowingly about the way you buy your food, the way you wash your food, the way you store your food, okay, and the containers and the cookware, right? Don't be cooking your food with a plastic spatula. Get wood or get metal, all right? Every step you can take will reduce your exposure, and that can make a difference over time. Now, let's talk about some really cool things that have been discovered, because now we're onto microplastics. We're also trying to figure out ways of actually getting rid of microplastics. So researchers have actually looked at how you can get rid of microplastics that are in your food. You can't get rid of them, right? So what happens if they're in food and you're eating them? Is there something we could eat along with the food that could actually help prevent the microplastics from getting into our blood vessels? The answer is yes. And you know what that something is? That can help lower microplastics being absorbed into your body. It's something you should be eating anyway. It is dietary fiber. Dietary fiber is good for us because, number one, it keeps your bowels moving so you're more regular. Number two, and this is the more important reason, dietary fiber feeds our healthy gut bacteria. Good gut health is very important. And when the bacteria are well fed, they release substances called short-chain fatty acids into our bloodstream that lowers inflammation, improves our brain health, improves our metabolism, and helps us heal faster as well, okay? So dietary fiber, should be eating that anyway, but here's another reason. Now we're beginning to discover that dietary fiber, which also, by the way, I forgot to mention, lowers cholesterol. that new research from Henan University in China suggests that eating dietary fiber can flush out microplastics. Pretty cool. All right. So I told you about the problem, and here is a potential solution. So there are ways that dietary fiber, can help your body get rid of microplastics. 3 different ways. Number 1, fiber, when you're eating it, actually binds to microplastics that are already inside your gut, right? So you're eating regular food, you're going to be eating some plastic. You eat food with dietary fiber, that the fiber from the food will stick to the microplastics so they don't get absorbed into your bloodstream. That's pretty cool, number 1. Number 2, dietary fiber will strengthen the lining of your gut. So think of your gut as a tube, all right, like a big garden hose. That's your gut, all right, about 40 feet of it from your mouth to your anus. And your gut is a tube, and the lining of that tube has to be really strong, right? Now, if your lining is not strong, okay, you got holes opening up in the lining of the gut, and then the stuff on the inside comes out. That's called leaky gut. Pretty common, actually. Leaky gut syndrome, more common than we thought. As a doctor, I can tell you we were not really taught about this in medical school. Now we're realizing it actually is pretty common. That lining is pretty sensitive. And guess what? Dietary fiber strengthens that lining, tightens it up. Less leaky gut, less likely any microplastics in your food that's in your gut are going to just dissolve out. So the fiber binds to the microplastics and just keeps it going, moving down so you can get rid of it, you poop it out. It tightens the lining of the gut so it's stronger, so you've got less leakiness of the gut where microplastics can leak out. And the third thing is that the fiber will feed the bacteria, and that bacteria will actually help your body counter any plastics that do get into your bloodstream, right? And the plastics can cause inflammation, as I mentioned to you, and well-fed gut bacteria from dietary fiber will lower that inflammation. So if any microplastics are causing a problem, your dietary fiber will feed your gut microbiome, which will then counter the inflammation, right? So fiber blocks, removes, and protects, okay, against microplastics. It's really another reason that you should be eating more dietary fiber. Here are some pro tips from me on how you can protect yourself against microplastics based on what I told you so far. Number 1, eat a diet that is very fiber rich, all right? Fruits, vegetables, mushrooms got dietary fiber, avocados got dietary fiber, legumes, white beans, black beans, kidney beans, they all have dietary fibers, chickpeas, lentils, good source of dietary fiber, whole grains, okay? There are lots of reasons whole grains good for you. Dietary fiber is one of them. And now here's another reason it can actually help protect you against the harms of microplastics. Nuts and seeds, tree nuts, walnuts, pecans, almonds, pistachios, macadamia, all those types of tree nuts, Brazil nuts. The dietary fiber protects you against microplastics, among other beneficial things they're doing, all right? And then soluble fiber that you would find in oats, flax seeds, lentils, apples, day-old rice after you refrigerate it, baked potatoes after you refrigerate them. You're all turning regular starch into resistant starch, which then feeds the gut microbiome. They are effective at binding the toxins, including dietary fiber. Another thing that you can do is to stay hydrated. I always tell people to stay hydrated. Water is, our body is made of anywhere from 50 to 70% water. You want to stay very, very well hydrated, okay? And guess what? Fiber that protects you works best from your diet when you have enough hydration, because hydration keeps things moving smoothly, all right? Keeps your blood flowing smoothly. So you want to stay hydrated. Get a water filter because you want to make sure your water is actually clean, or find a really clean source of water. And you want to get dietary fiber. It's best to get it from food, and it's best to mix it up because your body, your gut bacteria, they like to have different kinds of dietary fiber, not just the same source every single time. So you can take a supplement that has fiber in it, all right? But it's much better to mix it up, and it's better for your body anyway. Foods that are very diverse help your gut microbiome, which then lowers inflammation, which is a way to counter any inflammation that microplastics would cause. Now, let's switch from microplastics to heavy metals. All right, what are heavy metals? Lead, cadmium, mercury, arsenic. Do any of those things sound beneficial to your health? I didn't think so, all right? But these heavy metals, lead, cadmium, arsenic, mercury, they actually occur in nature. Listen, we live on a planet that at its core is filled with different types of metals and minerals, including heavy metals. But here's the thing, you want to decrease the amount that gets into your body from the environment, right? That makes a lot of sense. You want to decrease heavy metals in your food, so you want to pay attention to consumer research where people are testing for heavy metals in food, and you want to lower the amount of heavy metals that you might get in your drinking water, right? So how do you reduce your exposure to heavy metals? Well, let's start with drinking water. How does heavy metal get into drinking water? Well, listen, these metals naturally in earth can leach from rocks in the soil or from pipes that, like lead pipes, right, that are in your house, old lead pipes. They leach out. They can get right into your water. And then there's industrial waste and even chemical fertilizers from your lawn that run off heavy metals that go into the waterways and eventually get into the reservoir. And guess what? Even though most reservoirs actually have good filtration and sanitation and they do periodic testing, guess what? They can contain heavy metals as well, right? So how do you deal with this? Well, I want to tell you about something that is pretty simple. I think it's cool. A cup of tea can actually help bind the heavy metals that might be in water. So this is research from Northwestern University, and they've shown that tea leaves, tea particles. Tea is made out of tea leaves from a bush. Tea leaves can help filter out heavy metals like lead, cadmium, arsenic, mercury. Filter it out from your water. So let me explain how this works, right? How do you make tea? Well, you're going to take water, you're going to boil it, right? The water from your tap, unless you've tested it, might have some heavy metals. Maybe from your pipes, maybe from the reservoir, maybe from leaching from the soil. Who knows where all the places it can come from. But let's say you're going to brew the tea, right? So you're boiling the water and you're going to brew some tea. And it turns out that tea leaves, right? Which is basically like a leaf off of a bush, dried up when you buy tea. Now, when they pack it into a tea bag, you don't see the leaves, but they're in there. And I actually like to get whole leaf tea. All right. That's how when I grew up, my parents used to drink tea that way. There's these containers just of leaves. You put them into the cup, you pour boiling water in it. Guess what? Those tea leaves have a property called biosorbency. Biosorbency kind of sounds like what it means to do. It absorbs things. And so tea leaves will, even pieces of tea, like crumbled tea, can attract and bind ions that are metal through adsorption. It's a process called absorption, and what they'll do is they will stick to heavy metals, lead, cadmium, arsenic, mercury. Those will stick to the tea leaves, and guess what? They pull them right out of the water in your tea, right? So the study from Northwestern University, the researchers tested different kinds of tea. They tested black tea, green tea, oolong tea, chamomile tea, rooibos tea. That's a kind of a plant tea from South Africa. It's got kind of a red tea. It's not really made from tea. Camellia sinensis, all right? And chamomile tea is also not from the tea bush. It's made with flowers. All these things have benefits to your body. Anti-inflammation, antioxidants. Again, the researchers tested a variety of teas in various forms. Powdered tea, loose leaf tea, tea in a tea bag, right? So this is a really interesting experiment. They boil the water, steep the tea, or put the tea leaves in, all right, or put the powder in. And then they looked at how that liquid that's been steeping the tea, what they found happened to heavy metals in the tea and what was in the tea leaves themselves. So here's what they found. Ready? The finely ground black tea. It's the kind of tea you'd find in English breakfast tea, for example, had the strongest heavy metal binding capacity. Black tea, like Earl Grey, English or Irish breakfast tea, finely ground up, was actually the best at pulling out heavy metals from the water, in your tea water. Pretty cool. Now, the other thing that was pretty effective were tea bags made from cellulose. Now, this is really important. Cellulose is kind of a plant-based fiber, all right? But most tea bags can be coated with nylon to make them stronger, even paper ones, all right, sprayed with plastic nylon. And guess what? The cellulose doesn't have any microplastics on it, but nylon tea bags will leach out. You got it, microplastics, not what you want, right? So finely ground black tea, really good at binding heavy metals. Cellulose-based tea bags also bound to heavy metals, and they don't release microplastics. the longer the steeping time, the more heavy metals were actually removed from the water. So that's pretty cool. How could you put this into practical use? Like most people brew their tea 5 to 7 minutes. All right, that'll give you a nice strong brewed cup of tea. People like lighter tea will brew less. If you like stronger tea, you brew it a little bit more. But if you want to get the maximum heavy metal binding properties out of your tea leaves, use your tea to work for you, you know what you do? You actually brew tea and let it brew overnight. And you can put it in the fridge, all right? Like iced tea. And you're not just only just making the tea more potent, you can dilute it later, but you're also filtering out those heavy metals. Right? So tea leaves work like a natural filter. You want to detox your water by drinking tea, use black tea,
作业可以吗？猜了。
better yet, use loose tea tea or powdered tea. So let me just kind of give you a little recap of all the stuff we talked about in this video. First, microplastics. Avoid them because they can get in the body and now they can discover in the brain, human brain, right? You can avoid them by avoiding plastic containers, plastic bags, plastic bottles, plastic cooking utensils, plastic plates, plastic cups, right? You go to the ball game, go to a party, go and think about all those red plastic cups. Avoid that, all right? Eat more fiber to help flush out any microplastics that are going to be in your food anyway. You can't avoid it, but you can lower the risk. And then when it comes to heavy metals, cadmium, lead, arsenic, mercury in your water, try steeping some tea. And you can actually drink the tea and get the beneficial polyphenols, lowering inflammation, improving your metabolism, cutting off blood supplies, starving cancers, all that stuff. Better for brain health, good for gut health as well. And now here's another reason to drink tea. It actually, steeping tea, black tea, powdered tea, or in a cellulose bag can actually bind away, take out of the water heavy metals. If you found this video helpful, hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already, and then share the video with somebody that you know. Get them to subscribe so we can actually all get this information out. This is practical information that can benefit our health. These are simple steps that we can take. That's it for this video. I will see you in the next one. Dr. Lee out. Hey, if you like that video, then you're going to love this one. Check it out.